Welcome everyone to Obstacle Races New Zealand podcast. Thank you for joining us this time. And yeah, what have you been up to, Stephen? What sort of training have you been doing recently?
Not much at all, really. A little bit hard staying motivated, as I say every week. I've just been doing back to boot camp 3 days a week, or 3 mornings a week, and doing running a couple of days of the week, but have got no events until end of January, and probably winding down for the Christmas break, I suppose. Still working from home, still in lockdown here in Auckland. So yeah, like a bit hard staying motivated. How about yourself?
Yeah, but no, I've got one event coming up, which is awesome because there's so many have been cancelled. I have Alpha Challenge coming up in start of December. So I've still been keeping that at the back of my head, trying to make myself go running more for it. But just the other week, I was trying to do a speed workout. So I did some 1 km, what do you call it, intervals. So
interval training.
Yeah, trying to run a K at my race pace, and then take a break and run it again. And I was time pushed for it, so I only managed to do 3K, like 3 repeats. But I was shattered by the end of it. It's hard. And the workout I was following online was how to get faster for a 10K, and they were suggesting doing 8, intervals, 8 times 1 Ks. I'm like, man, I was exhausted after 3. It was a good workout though, so I might try and do that again. Try and push myself up, maybe do 4 or 5 next time. And
interval training is good. It is good. A bit of speed work. And hills. Hills is another one. I like going over to Cornwall Park or Mount Eden and just running up and down the road. It's about 700 metres, so 600 metres, but you get 100 for Auckland anyway, 150, 130 metres of elevation. So you've got to do a few to get a bit of hill work.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to live like on some hills in Wellington. So most of my runs are hill runs actually. So I'm in Newtown, which is in between like Mount Victoria and Mount Albert. And they're about maybe 200 meters elevation each. Yeah, so hill runs I love. I'm usually quite good at that, but trying to work on the speed side of things recently.
What I did do is I watched Breaking 2 on Disney Plus. It's about when Nike set out with 3 runners to try and break the 2-hour barrier.
I've heard a lot about that, yeah.
It was quite interesting how they went about it and how they picked their 3 runners, and how one of them didn't in the movie didn't actually make it, missed out just slightly, but a few months later they had another go and was happy, or was close enough to breaking it, I think, in London next time. But it is quite, if you're into running and different types of running and seeing what the African boys do, and girls, bloody live and breathe it.
Yeah, I think I was listening to an episode of Obstacle Racing Media, and they were talking a lot about it. And they're like mixed opinions on it. Sounds like the running community globally has mixed opinions on, because they're really pushing the technical side of things, like when they're using drafting and
they say it at the beginning. They are taking every possible advantage that they possibly can to break the 2-hour. Like they had a V formation of runners in front of the 3 of them to try and break the wind down. They had a car in front of them with traveling at the correct speed. They had Nike, all the latest Nike gear. They did months and months of training and all sorts of different things to increase their get 0.001% of the increase in certain things by different hydration schemes. It certainly is the high end of the sport, but it is they are still amazing athletes.
That's fascinating.
To do that.
Yeah.
To run at, what was it, 15 mile an hour for, no, it has to be 17 mile an hour, doesn't it? Yeah. Only something ridiculous in there to go 15 mile an hour, yeah, to do it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I'll have to give it a watch.
Yeah, it was 55 minutes of downtime during the week.
Nice.
We don't have any races to talk about, that have happened in our part of the world, but the interview this week is is quite good. He's a Kiwi living in Oman. No, UAE. Jeremy Robinson. That was quite a good chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fascinating. Yeah, he has a lot of interesting things that he's done as well, OCR wise. And we didn't have a lot of time to talk about a lot of them. Like, talks about running a trifecta in one day, and what else did he do? Doing like the first hurricane heat in the Middle East, and there's some other fascinating things that we didn't have time to drill into, really. But yeah, talk a lot about like Spartan race in general, like what it's like over in the Middle East and compared to New Zealand and in the OCR scene over there. Yeah, I learned a lot. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, no, it was good. He's a global ambassador for Spartan in the Middle East. He's a SGX coach for Spartan. Yeah, he certainly is in the Spartan world thing. But I was quite surprised of how many events he gets to go to in and around that area. Like, I just didn't believe OCR or Spartan was going to be that big in the Middle East. Like 3 hours drive, and he can go to one nearly every second weekend.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you talked about the government games. So there's
Yes.
Was it a series or an event just for government workers only?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we didn't get a chance to ask about that, but that's mind blowing that you have
there's
like
enough
niche OCR event and there's enough people to do it. It's awesome.
But there's enough there to go back to him, especially after the Spartan World Games or Spartan World Series that's going to be held in Dubai or somewhere over that part of the world in the beginning of December. So get him back on early in the new year and drill him a little bit more and find out a bit more about that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we're releasing this interview now because, yeah, the World Championships, the Spartan World Championships are over there in December. So, yeah, we'll learn a bit about it leading into the championships. And yeah, before the interview, do you want to bring up now? We'll talk about qualification criteria for Spartan Auckland. We mentioned it a little bit in the interview, but Spartan Auckland was announced as the New Zealand National Championships for Spartan, which means it became a direct qualifier for the Spartan World Championships. And then New Zealand obviously got postponed a few years, so we haven't really found out how that works in practice. But hopefully Spartan Auckland 2022 is going to have the same qualification criteria as Spartan World Championships 2022, and we'll see if the championships are over in the Middle East again.
Yeah, well, I think after anyone who listens to Jeremy's little discussion, I think there'll be people lining up to go because it certainly sounds an interesting place, and the racing sounds different to anything we would get in this part of the world, especially racing in 40-degree heat.
Yeah, and sand dunes and
sand dunes, and having to worry about scorpions.
Yeah, so I believe there's going to be 80 qualification spots coming out of Spartan Auckland for the World Championships.
Okay.
Which is crazy. I mean, 80 people qualify.
I suppose that's 40 each.
If the maths is correct on that, because they give the qualification, they say 3 per age group. So that's the maths there being 10 age groups for Spartan. However, Spartan Auckland only has 3 age groups.
Yes.
So that's assuming they are taking the top 3 in the normal 10 age groups, which Spartan usually uses and are using at the World Championships. But yeah, Auckland's doing the top 10 elites qualify, top 10 males, top 10 females in the elites at Auckland qualify for the elites at the World Championships, and the top 3 in each age group and each gender qualify for age group at the World Championships. So no information about how that's going to work in 2022 yet, but hopefully it all stays the same. See a lot of Kiwis qualifying would be awesome.
We should try and get hold of someone from Spartan early in the new year and have a chat to them before once we know that date's set and it is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because even in the New Zealand National Championship for Spartan, there's still not a lot of information.
No.
Like we know it's happening and it's going to be the super. Beyond that, I don't know how it's going to work. Like, is it the entire super? Like, is it all the elites and all the age groupers, or is it just a separate race? Don't know. It'll be
and then there's
information from Spartan.
The trail race. That's one that's sort of a little bit dark and muddy at the moment. We don't know what's happening with that, if it's going to happen, where it's going to happen. The Spartan Trail, which you've signed up for, and I intended to, but luckily it all got canned before I'd given them any more money.
Yeah, so that I mentioned that in the interview too, that the Spartan Trail for Auckland, it's I think under review was the term Spartan used, and they pulled it from their website. There's no date for it. It's not postponed. It's not cancelled, and there's been no mention of refunds or transfers. So like I paid my tickets for it. Zero word from Spartan on what's happening. And if they're going to offer refunds or transfers, it's just in limbo, and it's kind of ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, well, hopefully they should be back in the office now in Australia, because I see they've got a race this weekend, have they, or next weekend? It's Taradan in Victoria, I think, is on at the moment. I did see that somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The only results I did find, and we talked about a little bit earlier, was the world toughest mudder results, the 24-hour race held in the US.
Before we go into those results, we got some guests coming up on the podcast too, that world's toughest mudder participants from New Zealand who've competed in previous years. So, listen out for that. It's going to be fascinating to hear their thoughts. Let's go into the results for 2021.
So in the elite solo, Katie Knight won it, did 18 laps for 90 miles in 24 hours and 4 minutes. Amelia Boone did 85 miles, 17 in 23:42. And Erin Roast did 85, 17 laps in 24 hours, 59 minutes. Have you got the men's there, or do you want me to scroll down and find them?
I've got the men's here. Yeah, so first was Mark Feitres. Should learn how to pronounce these. But he finished 23 laps, 115 miles, 24 hours and 18 minutes. Trevor Siskaris, 22 laps, 110 miles. So it's 1 lap behind first place. He finished in 24 hours and 1 minute. And David Fox was third at 21 laps and 105 miles. Also only 1 lap separating first, second, and third. And he completed that in 23 hours and 55 minutes.
Yes, we must find out if there was any Kiwis in the race over there, because I know, like you said, we've had a couple of people on that have done it, and they and a couple of people coming up, I should say, and they've raved about it. One of the guys we got coming up probably early New Year, he's planning on going back. But it looks like a great event, that's for sure.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. Just hearing stories about it, and it's insane as well. I don't know if any Kiwis entered this year. I haven't heard anything. Haven't seen anyone posting. Maybe due to COVID and the borders being closed and international travel restrictions.
Yes. All right. Well, shall we cut to Jeremy, and instead of us two waffling on, listen to a Spartan from the UAE.
Yeah, it's going to be a long episode, but it's totally worth it.
Enjoy.
Joining us today on the podcast, we have Jeremy Robertson. You've been racing OCR around the world since 2014, and a bit of stuff I found out about you. You messaged earlier. So you're a Spartan SGX Coach, the Spartan Global Brand Ambassador, and the Middle East and the North African Spartan Brand Ambassador as well. And you're a Kiwi. Almost forgot that part. So where were you? You were born in New Zealand.
I was born in Ashburton, actually, just out of Christchurch, and then spent 9 years there. Then moved up to New Plymouth, and spent the rest of my time there, I guess, until I think I moved away to Palmerston North. Did a bit of time there, so I sort of bounced around a little bit. and then got married, had a couple of kids, and decided it was time to move overseas. So 2007, moved over to the United Arab Emirates, where my wife had a job over here, working in education, and I was working in architecture and construction. So that was the beginning of my big OE. And up until then, I was not really into many sports. Like I'd done martial arts, karate, and sports through school, but nothing really competitive until I got here.
So your wife is she from UAE or she's from New Zealand?
So my wife is from New Zealand as well, and both my kids were born in Palmerston North.
Sorry to interrupt, Max here. There was a small section in the interview here where Jeremy's mic cut out and we missed a second or two of what he was saying. And there are a few other sections during this interview where the connection quality is not so good and we lose a second or two of his audio. But overall, I think you can understand what he's saying, and the interview overall, we get the gist of what he's saying. So yeah, enjoy.
4 months, and one of them was 4 years when we left New Zealand. So they've pretty much grown up here. My oldest one is now 18, so she's about to head off to university in February. So we've managed to get through the lottery that is MIQ, and we arrived in New Zealand on Christmas Day to do 7 days isolation, and then the 3 days home isolation, which is good. I don't know if I could do 14 days with my 18-year-old in the same room, but and then she goes to university. So that's a big chapter in our lives, particularly since we've been together. We're a pretty tight family. For the last 14 years, we've been together, travelled together all over the world. So yeah, that's going to be slightly different.
Oh well, so you're all moving back to New Zealand, or you're coming over here to get her settled?
I'm just coming over to help her settle in. So I'll be there for about a month. Unfortunately, my wife will not be able to come over. She's working in a university, so they have pretty restricted times when they can leave, take vacation, and a month is pretty unusual to take vacations from work here. So she's going to be staying here with my youngest one, who's still got school at that time. So because we're in the Northern Hemisphere, we have different school years. So she starts in June, or she finishes in June, and then her sort of summer break over here is June to September, and then she goes from September onwards. So she'll be in school still. So it'll just be me, and then I fly back to the UAE. I've still got work back here as well.
So are you still architecting, or are you now full-time coaching?
3 years ago, I was managing a architectural company here. It was a multidiscipline company. And then just the economy was not going great, and they had to shut down 2 of the offices. And unfortunately, one of the offices was mine. So I was made redundant 3 years ago. I went back to university. I decided, look, I'm going to get some more qualifications, went back, and I've been studying for the last 3 years. I'm just about to finish another degree. And in that time, I looked at supplementing my income. So I went into doing boot camps with a fellow PT, and we just started community boot camps, really, just to get people off the couch, you know, the old Spartan ethos, and just getting people fit, catering to different levels, from beginners to those that wanted to compete in OCR, really. So what I've been doing for the last 3 years is PTs, boot camps, and then specific Spartan race training over the last maybe 6 months, because we have not had races for maybe 18 months. Because of COVID, everything just basically got shut down. The government put a stop to any sort of competitive races, which was good in a way. And now they've just opened up everything. Our cases here are, at one stage we were getting 3,000 cases a day, but now we're down to something like 60 cases, which is fantastic. The government's done an amazing job in this country, honestly. And if I can say, I'm very disappointed with the way New Zealand's handled it. So yeah, we've just opened up races. Our first race was October the 5th, I think it was. And then we had one last weekend, November the 3rd, I think it was.
October the 9th, your one was. Sorry, I've got Athlinks open. It was the only way I could find out what you've done.
Yes.
So you did a 5K Spartan. That'd be nice.
So it was, I mean, now is our season. So it's a bit cooler. It's, although it was still probably 28, 29 degrees on that day. Last weekend was probably much better. It was probably 24 degrees. So, and it was a sprint and a super. Unfortunately, I was warming up and I up in the back of my leg, and that was it. I pulled out of those races. So luckily, I was able to, man, we've got some activation areas in the festival city where we can try some of the obstacles that were going to be in the World Championships. So I was used in that as a coach to show them the spear throw, tire flip, and the Z-wall. And if they completed that, then they went in to get a free ticket to the World Championships. So we had a little bit of a mini obstacle course for them to do.
Okay. Oh, that sounds interesting. So the World Championships, that's about to start soon, isn't it? Isn't that in November?
December 3rd to the 5th. And it's about 2 hours away from Abu Dhabi, in the desert, so the Moreb dunes. It's basically a massive sandpit with like, these dunes are enormous. You'll be climbing for hours. So we're pretty excited about that. First time that the World Championships have been out of the States, I believe.
Yes, I think it is. Oh, I was just going to say, so before we get too carried away about, how did you get into obstacle sports, or where was it? Oh, you said it was while you were in UAE. So can you fill us in a bit on how you got into it and what drives it?
So, as Max said, 2014 is when I had my first obstacle racing event, I guess. It was Men's Health Urban Athlon. That's what it was. And I've still got the T-shirt, and I've still got the medal. And it was held at, we had the Formula One racing track here on one of the islands, and it was just held there. It was just sort of a looping round the Formula One track. And they had some, climbing walls, carries, and then we also had to swim across the marina a little bit. That was my first introduction, and I just sort of never heard of this obstacle racing before. Thought I'd give it a try, and ever since I've just been addicted to it. So from then, I just was looking for the next race. So the next one, I think, was 2015. It was another whole year before Spartan actually arrived in the UAE. So 2015, I did Spartan race. Tough Mudder also arrived around 2015. And then I guess it just took off in the area, in the region. There was, they had some local ones. They had one called the Shaman. They had one called Mahmoon. Desert Warrior was another one. Then they had night races as well, which was fantastic. Obviously here it was the temperatures during the day, you get up to 50 degrees. So having them at night was a different experience. But they have a lot of money. So the track, there were lights, or there were glow sticks, or everything was just lit up. So it was fantastic. Actually, I've done maybe 8, which is cool. And then it just progressed from there. It was just every year there seemed to be more and more races. At first, I started in the open category. And then as I progressed, I think I did one elite and thought, no, this is not for me. Competing against guys that were half my age, it was fun, but you just didn't get that sense of achievement, I guess, coming in at 50 or 20. So I moved into the age category where I believe my age category, which was at the time, I think it was the 40 to 45, was the most competitive age category there is in this region. It's like the 40-year-olds had got their career, the kids had grown up, moved on, and they had time to get fit and race. So it's actually a really competitive category that we're in. And so I think it was 2008, things really started to take off. I went to Oman. We did a trifecta weekend in there. I participated in the first hurricane heat in the Middle East region. So that's another sort of area that is completely different to racing in Spartan, and more of an endurance team building event, which I really enjoyed. Again, something different than racing. And then I guess a reputation sort of grew out of that. And I was asked by Tough Mudder to be obstacle tester. So when their events came over and they were set up, they invited me along to make sure that the obstacles were safe, and just make comments whether they are hard or not. And also that then progressed. We have another event called the Government Games, which is a 3-day event of obstacle racing for all the government entities in the UAE to participate. And these obstacles are large. It's kind of like a mixture of American Ninja and obstacle racing. There, I guess, it might have been late 2018, I decided to become a SGX coach, just to keep within the Spartan family. And, I'd really enjoyed racing in Spartan, so I thought it was time to sort of give back to the community as well. So I thought, look, I'm going to get certified. So did the level 1 coaching course, and that was over a weekend event, and also had to do my foundation course as well, which was not easy. If you've never done PT or so qualifications in fitness, for someone who's new to that, I really had to study. There was a lot more to it than what I thought. One, I think, just really gave me a bit of a boost. So with that, I also continued my racing. I went to the Philippines for the Southeast Asia Championships and raced over there. And that was, I think that was a highlight of my racing, actually. Racing in the desert for the last sort of 4 years and then going and racing in the jungle was absolutely amazing. And the Philippines itself was just such a beautiful country. At the time, they had a super typhoon. So that weekend, we were supposed to race a Friday and a Saturday. The super typhoon came through the Thursday night and absolutely destroyed the course on the Friday. So what they did is they put the sprint, super, and beast all on one day, and you had to race those 3 races on the Saturday. So we turned up 6 o'clock in the morning. We started off with the sprint, finished the sprint, sat down, had some nutrition, had some hydration. About half an hour later, jumped up, ran the super, and then again did the same thing: nutrition, hydration, and then half an hour later, we ran the beast. We must have run close to 50 Ks, but the elation of finishing the beast, I think it was 12 hours of racing. It was 6 till 6. Such an emotional time, you know. I guess if you've run ultras, you know, 50 plus Ks, or even the Spartan version?
Spartan Ultra.
Sure. Yeah, it was similar to that. So done that. Raced in Ireland. That was another great experience. Again, just a different terrain. Absolutely freezing cold. Someone coming from the desert. We don't do well in the rain and the cold, but managed a good placing. So then qualified for the European Championships as well. I've done 2. And I'm looking forward to going to the World Championships in December. I've also done 2 hurricane heats now. And that wraps up my racing. But as I say, getting my SGX coaching and then moving into becoming a Spartan regional ambassador and now global ambassador, promoting Spartan wherever I can, basically, yeah. And that sort of, I guess, wraps up where I'm at now. Making contact with whoever I can, inviting them over to come to the World Championships, trying to make that just an epic event in an amazing country, honestly.
Mm. Yeah, no, looking at your photos on Instagram, it certainly looks like it would be a brilliant place to visit. I've been to Dubai. I haven't been to anywhere else, though, so I'd like to go back and have a look around. And the Philippines, I'm glad you like that. Me and my wife lived there for a little while, and we loved it. And I'd go back tomorrow if I could. It's a beautiful place. But unluckily, when we were there, in 2012 and 13, Spartan or even obstacle racing wasn't big, and we were in the southern part of the country.
Absolutely amazing. The people were wonderful. Even running on the course, you know, they're just so encouraging, and it's just really taken off. We've got a lot of Filipino families here in the UAE, and you know, once you say, "Oh, I raced in the Philippines," and then they say, "Oh, where?" and then "Oh, that's where I come from," and you know, it's that's what I like about Spartan, is that it creates a community, and you sort of look forward to going to the next race, because you only see that certain person every month when you go to a race, and it feels like you haven't been separated. You just pick up the conversation where you left off. So, you know, that's why really enjoy about the Spartan. And, you know, I'm sort of getting to an age now. I love racing, yes, but it's more about the community. So although I was disappointed that I had to pull out of the races last weekend, I got so much more enjoyment out of actually meeting a lot more athletes, competitors, through the activation event that I was in charge of. You know, getting your name out there, yes, that's great, but it's teaching someone how to throw the spear properly. I mean, that's always a burpee maker, you know, and no one wants to do burpees. The spear is usually the last obstacle, and no one really feels like doing burpees after they've run 5K, 10K. So, you know, teaching them how to nail that spear and the smile on their face, I mean, that was enough for me.
So just on that, you have a lot of Spartan events around close to you, do you?
It's starting to take off. As I say, now's our season. So we've got one a month at the moment. And then in the new year, so we'll probably go January, February, March, maybe April. We've probably got another one a month. So we'll have one. I hear there's rumours about one in Bahrain, which again is another amazing place to run. They've got a little bit of elevation, although it's an island elevation, but you get to run through the wildlife sanctuary with ostriches. So that's quite an experience. They're looking at doing another one in Saudi, and they have got some real elevation in some of the mountains. And then they'll probably do another one in Dubai. So we're looking maybe 3, maybe 4 more races as we go into the new year.
Okay, oh, well, that's certainly a lot better than we get here in the NZ, that's for sure.
Yeah, I didn't realise Spartan was so massive over there. And Spartan World Championships moving there, it's quite amazing. Because New Zealand only has one a year at this point. Hopefully we'll grow. We had, I mean, New Zealand context, we had Spartan here 2019, the one race, and heard rumours that it was sort of a test race to try and grow, see what New Zealand was like. But then obviously COVID hit, and we haven't had a second Spartan yet. But fingers crossed for 2022 that Spartan will return.
I think New Zealand is a fantastic place to host obstacle racing. I think the terrain, the different terrain that New Zealand has is suited for Spartan racing or any obstacle racing. Just following your guys' Facebook page and seeing the different events. I'm disappointed that I was never there when these sort of things opened up. I'd love to come back and race in New Zealand and seeing there's what the ultimate
athlete.
So I've been following that. I think they started last year. So that's one that I've been looking at. Actually, there's quite a few racers here in the UAE who follow it and wish that they could go to New Zealand and race as well. They just look at the terrain and they just think that it's perfect. So I'm hoping that Spartan takes off a bit more in New Zealand. My brothers did race in the one that you had in 2019?
19, yep.
We also had some friends go from here and race in it as well. To improve, I can tell you that. The comments from people that went from here, they were a little disappointed with the event. But again, I mean, it was their first one. I said, look, it's their first one. If you think back to Spartan Arabia's first event and compare the two, they're probably on par. So, you know, it requires a lot of logistics. I believe the obstacle markers that come from all over the world, you know, the people that set up the obstacles here, they are not local people. They are Spartan International that come over from the UK or the States, and they set up the obstacles here. So I understand there's a lot of logistics behind it, and but I would love New Zealand to have at least 3 or 4 events to do with Spartan.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky here. It's really pushed. The government is behind it. So the Abu Dhabi Sports Council is sponsoring this World Championship event. So the government is actually really behind getting people off the couch, getting people active. They've done, we still have Tough Mudder here, under Spartan, obviously. We have the Spartan Trail runs here. And then we have all the smaller local ones, as you guys have, the Wanaka and, all these other events. So obstacle racing has really taken off here over the last 4 or 5 years. It's fantastic.
I just hope COVID hasn't done too much damage here in New Zealand, because it was just starting to take off. And we've had a couple of conversations with the CEO of Spartan Australia and New Zealand, and he was prepared to do 3 or 4 events to see if it could make money out of it. They've had several goes at trying to do it since their first one, but and even Ultimate Athlete, they struggled. They had to cancel and move events this year several times. So hopefully it'll all come together in 2022 and we'll be back to the new normal.
I know that, last weekend we probably had 1,000 competitors. We were actually sold out, which was fantastic for Spartan. But in saying that, I don't think that they make any money. I think they may break even. And our tickets here are expensive. We still pay US dollars. I think for the, just as comparison, the US Championship, the World Championships, I think an open ticket for the...
Sorry, we missed that. You cut out on us.
The Beast ticket is $250 US dollars.
Okay. So who runs the Spartan there? Is it a UAE company, or is it comes from the UK or somewhere else in the Middle East?
Spartan Arabia, which is a locally run company or franchise, part of the Spartan brand. Yeah. So everyone here is locally sourced. The regional manager is from Canada, who he did Spartan over there, worked for Spartan in Canada, but he has a very tight connection with the main Spartan brand. So he goes away on their weekends, and he's in touch with them and all the time. So we're trying to build a bigger brand here, definitely.
Oh, that's good. And it is they do put on a good event. We've spoken to several people who have raced multiple other things, and they always speak highly of Spartan. We're just annoyed here that we had it at Ellerslie Raceway. We do have so many other good places that could have been held. Now it's moved to Barry Curtis Park, so that's a bit of an improvement. But hopefully within a year or two they'll be able to get out into the countryside a bit and show off a bit more of New Zealand's natural areas.
And, like last weekend, we had it at the zoo, city zoos. There was a sprint, which was majority of it was running through the zoo. Now the zoo is massive, and I think it's probably like the Auckland Zoo. So you were running past the animal cages, and then you sort of go out. We have a bit of a wildlife sanctuary as well, and come in and out. The 10K, because of the zoo's location, it's actually at the base of a large I'd say hill. I can't say mountain because I come from New Zealand. So there was a little bit of change in terrain. So you're running up and down the terrain a little bit. But we have some larger mountains, I guess, in the centre of the country, which having obstacle racing out there is absolutely amazing. The terrain out there is rocky. It's goat tracks. There's no greenery. There's no bushes or anything like that. So once the sun comes up, it's quite intense. But as you say, Spartan puts on a good event. They have water stations. They had food stations. It was almost every 1 kilometre, 1.5 kilometres. So they really, really know what they're doing, and they make sure that people are looked after. The festival area, again, this might be because they have the money. They have massages. They have medical tents that people get a rub down. They make sure, because of the temperatures here as well, that everybody's hydrated. So there's plenty of free water, free electrolytes, etc. So they really do a good race over here, and it'll be amazing if you guys could come over and check it out.
Yeah, well, a couple of the people in the NZ OSA were talking about going to the World Championships, but because of what is happening here in New Zealand at the moment, we don't actually know when or if we'll ever get out of the country. Getting back in is a little bit easier, but not hugely easy at the moment. Yeah, by the sounds of it, next year should be better.
Are the championships going to be over there next year? Do you know? Is it a multiple year deal, or is it not announced at this point?
Announced at this point.
Okay.
Do you think they'll hold it back there, or it'll just depend on how this one pans out?
Exactly that. If it's a good event, pushing to hold it here again. But I mean, if you read a lot of the comments from outside of this area, particularly from the States, a lot of people are not very happy that it's moved out of the States. The States is obviously one of they draw the most amount of Spartan competitors. So for them to travel over here is a bigger cost. And I think people's perception of this area as well puts them off. I follow a lot of the comments, and I think it's or people feed off what the media gives them. And to be honest, this is one of the safest places that you could be in the Middle East. They are very respectful of other cultures, other religions. I mean, one of the comments is the way that they treat their women here. And I can tell you, I have 2 daughters, and my wife works with locals, and she is treated with the utmost respect. And there are a lot of women in leadership in this country. So that aside, I think I would love for it to be here for another 2 years. I think that's what they intend to have happen, but it all depends on how well the event goes this year. Yeah.
It would be awesome to get some more Kiwis over there. And it is the Spartan World Championships. It's not the North American Championships. As much as the Americans want to complain. My wife's American, so I sort of talk bad about Americans sometimes, but I know what you mean. It's sort of their culture to be quite American-centric. A lot of them will complain if the World Championships move outside of the US, but I think that's some of the benefits of sport, what you were saying about people's perceptions of the Middle East and some negative connotations there. But that's one of the benefits of sport, I think, is that it can bring people together, like around the world, and expose people to different areas that they may not know about, and people can travel and athletes can travel, and it's quite a unifying thing. And hopefully Spartan, moving outside of the US can do that.
And on your comments about it, I've been lucky enough to travel to a lot of places in the world, and I love the Philippines as well. And the Philippines has some bad press, but bad press sells newspapers. Good, heartwarming stories doesn't. And you only have to look at, they take a little bit of Israel and they blame the whole Middle East for that. And that's all they get on their news. In America, because I worked for an American company for on and off for 20 years, that's all they get. They don't get to see the other 95% of what the country's like, which is sad, really, because it's where they take all their thing from. So
they would have a teams event at the World Championships for countries, but I'm not too sure that they'll be doing that. Kiwi that I race with, he lives in. He usually comes to our Middle Eastern events as well. Ryan Pedden, and he went to the Trifecta Championships in Greece, and I think he represented New Zealand over there.
Oh, okay.
He was vice captain for New Zealand for the Spartan Trifecta World Championship.
We have to get him on the podcast. There's so many Kiwis out there doing awesome stuff that, we're not aware of.
There are. We've probably in the region here in Abu Dhabi, we've probably got 5 or 6 actually really competitive Kiwis. I mean, it's in our nature to do sport, So once we find something, we're all gung ho and we just put everything into it. So it's good. I think there's another guy. He's in the age category just below me. So, but he's fast Kiwi guy, fast, and he's really smashing it. So I'm hoping to move up to the next category once he moves into mine, because as I say, it's competitive.
So do they still, what is the age groups you have in Dubai or your part of the world?
The age groups, so the youngest one is, I think, 14 to 18, and then we go right up. I think they break them up into sort of 5 years, right up to, we have guys racing that are 55 plus.
I'm 55 plus, and I'm now with the 40-year-olds, because Australia and New Zealanders go just 40 plus now. So I'm very disappointed, because I was doing well in my age group for a long time, and now I have no hope of keeping up with a 40-year-old. I have no trouble keeping up with a 45-year-old either, but so yes.
We still have podiums for first, second, third for each age group category.
Yep.
So, which is fantastic. I mean, yes, the 55 plus category might have 2 people, but we still celebrate their wins.
Oh, hey, well, I went the Ultimate Athlete you just talked about a while ago. When we went to Mount Maunganui, they went 60 plus, and there was 1 woman and 2 males in that age category. So, yeah, you've got to celebrate it. It's the only way you're going to keep people in it.
That's right. A lot of people come for the T-shirt and the medal, but a lot of people come for just the community.
Oh, yes, yeah. And I have to admit, I spoke to Chris from Spartan Australia, New Zealand earlier this year, and that's one of the things he said is they make sure they don't concentrate on the elites, because elites don't make any money for them. Mostly they've got to give them the entry to get them there. And you've got to be inclusive across all ages and genders, and most people come as a team or a group just to finish it, and it's getting a T-shirt, a medal, and in this part of the world, a can of beer.
Don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're right with that. It is, and me and Max have talked this with several of our guests, and it is all, more of it is about the social side of it, the camaraderie. We had the couple from Alpha Challenge on a couple of weeks ago, and they take groups to Australia, and they've taken a group to Hawaii, and it's more about just going over there and racing as having a great weekend away and doing something.
Exactly, and that's what we've done when we went to the Philippines. There was a group called OCR Freaks, and there was probably about a dozen of us that we all just went over. Part of it was to race, but part of it was just to have a good time as a group of athletes together, exploring a new country. And the same when we go to Oman, a group of us go and we camp in Oman and we race and we have a great time as a community. But just in talking of the elite athletes, we have, I guess, our location makes it very accessible for athletes to come over from Europe. So I don't know if you know Sergey Perelgin. He raced in the I think he raced in the trifecta championships. He came second whenever they had them last. Richard Heisnick, we have him coming over. We've had Bracken Kraken come over. So we get quite a few elite guys coming over because they think it's an easy race. But I tell you that the terrain, the climate breaks them. And if you don't come over and try and run sand dunes, you're gone. You're gone. So I do believe that those guys coming over for the World Championships may underestimate the terrain here. Running those sand dunes, I mean, we do it weekly. We go out, we run sand dunes as training. You should see the size of calves on these people. So the elites, yeah, it's fantastic to have them over here, but don't underestimate it, really.
And sand, people do underestimate sand because that ultimate athlete was held on the beach at Tauranga. And Max, you were there, you were officiating, and I've never run on sand so far in all my life, and I would have given up after 5Ks. It was killing my legs. I could hardly walk. And so many other people said it was on the beach. It should have been easy, but it isn't. Once that sand gets soft and churned up a little bit, it's like running in quicksand. Running in sand dunes is probably a hell of a lot worse.
Up 5 steps back, it's you go nowhere. And people have asked me, so how do you train? Like people outside of the area, how do you train? I said, do you have snow? Yes, we've got snow. We'll go train in snow because it's similar thing, you're just sort of digging your way through. But a lot of these local boys here, they're like camels. They just glide across the sand, and they are fast. The local boys are fast. So it's going to be an interesting time. I'm looking forward to it. It's a 3-day event. Yes, it's far away, but they're supposed to be putting up a tent city out there so we can all sort of congregate and stay out there. There's a few hotels out in the area as well. So the World Championships are going to be very interesting, exciting. A night race, super night race. It's something a bit different. I don't think I've done a Spartan race at night. But they're pulling out all stops. I mean, Joe's Decina's been over here quite a few times promoting it. Okay. So I'm looking forward. Yeah.
Oh, well, hopefully they will do a second one and give me and Max and a few other Kiwis a chance to get over there.
It's a Max. Part of my role was to basically sell tickets. We want to make this a great event. So I said, look, if there's anyone thinking about it, coming from New Zealand, I'm prepared to give them tickets, basically. Discounted, heavily discounted. A little bit of a plug, but hey, I'd love to see more Kiwis over here racing. But I understand with MIQ and quarantine and, myself, I'm going through the same thing when I arrive in December. I completely understand that it's unpredictable.
And like, I'm an Aussie and my wife's a Kiwi and we live here, but we can't go back to Australia because there's no guarantee she can get in, and then there's no guarantee that I could come back. So we're just staying put, not trusting anything. So, but hopefully, we're hoping next year we'll go back to not normal, because we're not going to go back to normal for a long time, I don't think. But things will open up and be a little bit easier to get around.
Well, what they've done here, and obviously we're in a different sort of political system, but every racer has to be vaccinated, and you have to have a PCR test before the day before you race, which in a way is good. You turn up to an event, you know that everyone has had a test and has had a negative result. You know that everyone is vaccinated. So, okay, we still wear masks, not on the course, but around the festival area. But they've got your safety in mind. And that's the reason why we've been able to open up all these events very, very quickly and Spartan race every month. But in between, we have urban ultras running, 20 to 100 Ks. We have, we've just had the T20 cricket here. We've had Ironman races, World Championship Ironman. We've had, what else is there? Oh, just local events, running for cancer, running for diabetes. All these things have come about because, it's mandatory to be vaccinated and have a PCR. Now, I understand that might not go down as well in a democracy, but it's worked here. And we're so grateful that the government's made us do that, but now we're out, we're racing. We are, 60 cases a day. We're currently, I think, 0 deaths in the last sort of week. So take what you want from that.
Yeah, hopefully next year New Zealand, because New Zealand was doing an elimination strategy, closed the border off, mass events couldn't go ahead. But New Zealand's moving over to relying on vaccinations, and opening up the country again and allowing events to go ahead. So us being in the event space, being into OCR, it'll be good for the sport to see all the races come back. Hopefully it pans out good. But I was wanting to ask about your earlier point, actually. You talked about offering tickets to the World Championships. So fingers crossed it goes back to UAE next year, the World Championships. Be awesome to get some Kiwis over there, actually. If it does come back and you want to try and incentivize some Kiwis, we're happy to promote, getting tickets through you. But when Spartan comes back to New Zealand, it's going to be the New Zealand National Championships. Even though we only have one Spartan in New Zealand, it's going to be the National Championships, which will be awesome. But because of that, it's going to be a direct qualifier for the World Championships. So I think both elite and age group can qualify directly out of Spartan New Zealand, which will be awesome. So yeah, things go ahead next year. I mean, there may be a bunch of New Zealanders qualified in New Zealand who may want to take the next step and who may be looking to compete in Spartan Worlds.
And if it is back here, and I'm now working very closely with the Spartan Arabia team. It's something that we could definitely look at to fall into line, but it would be fantastic to have a good contingent over here. I was going to ask, what date are you expecting the New Zealand Spartan races?
14th of May is what it's penciled in for at the moment. If you are thinking, or anyone else is thinking, because it's Spartan is the 14th, and then the week later is Ultimate Athlete. They did actually end up being on the same day, but a couple of people had a chat with one another and then decided that they would move them a week apart. It also makes it easier. Well, they're also hoping that Aussies will come over do Spartan, have a week looking around, do Ultimate Athlete, and then maybe stay a bit longer. But yeah, that's what the date is currently.
I question why they do it in the winter time.
Spartan.
Because of Australia's schedule.
Yeah, it's to do with Australia's schedules, but it was also to do with, when I spoke with Chris, it was all to do with they had a deal with Auckland Tourism, and it was getting a venue that had to be in the city, and Ellerslie Raceway isn't used at that period of time. Now that they've moved out of Ellerslie, they may be able to change the date moving forward, but it does align with New South Wales and then moving the stuff to Queensland so they can shift it around, and because they put it all in containers and bring it over from Oz. So he was talking that if it does happen to go off here, he will look at purchasing a lot of gear and keeping it here, especially if they can tie in with a couple of other events organisers to use it as well. So part of our job with NZOSA is trying to help build that trust between event organisers so that people can share some amenities, so to speak.
The events that they're having, are they going to have a trifecta or they HH or anything like that?
A sprint and a super, and they have had there's a trail, but the trail is TBA. It hasn't really said where it's going to be, and I think you signed up for it, didn't you, Max? But we've never heard anything.
I did, yeah. I'm a bit annoyed by that. Spartan's a bit difficult the past few years. But they announced the trail for New Zealand, trail run, and then they removed it from the calendar. Never said anything. And then later they sent an email out after they removed it saying, "Oh, it's under assessment. It's not officially cancelled, not officially postponed, and I haven't gotten a refund, even though there's no date." Yeah. But there's also a hurricane heat coming to Auckland.
Is there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was wanting to ask you about that as well, because you took part in the first hurricane heat for the Middle East, and like a little bit about what we could expect for New Zealand.
Oh, and I was actually looking at training to be a cryptayer, which is one of the, I guess, leaders of a hurricane heat, or training underneath the they call them. And that's something that I would like to pursue, especially if I come back to New Zealand. I think I have two family members who were in the military. My father was in the military. My brother was in the military. So I sort of have an understanding and background in that military style of operation. And the hurricane heat is the 4 hour anyway. So they have a 4 hour, they have a 12 hour, and they have a 24. So I've done 2 4 hour hurricane heats. That 4 hours is all about teamwork. It's you turn up with, they give you a gear list. You have to have all that gear, otherwise you fail. And it could be that you have to bring a brick, or you have to bring a tomato or a paper plate. They have some obscure object that you have to bring, and they will make you use it in your 4 hours somehow. I think the one that I went to, we had to have just a roll of duct tape. And obviously you have some paracord, you have a multi-tool, some standard equipment. And in that 4 hours, they put you through maybe half a dozen tasks that you have to complete as a team. So I think we had 100 participants in the first hurricane heat, and then they split you up into sort of groups of 10. The first task that we had to do is that we had to create a way of suspending a 70 kg tyre using paracord, and then someone was supposed to sit in it while we sort of carried them 1 kilometre. And then once we got there, they changed up the teams. Then we had to do, I think it was 200 burpees in unison. And then they would move to another point, and we were in the surf, and we had to do flutter kicks. And it was kind of like a Navy SEAL military team building event. And at the end of 4 hours, you all march back into the festival area as one big team, and everyone graduates and gets your dog tags and your t-shirt. The 12 hour and the 24 hours, so they can do what's called a 3X, HH3X. So you do the 4 hours. At the end of the 4 hours, you have an option of going on and doing the 12, so another 8 hours. And then after that, you have an option of going on and doing 24 hours. They break it up into, as I say, teamwork building for the first 4 hours. Then the second 8 hours is all about mental, and then the last is trying to break you physically or push you to the point of breaking, but not breaking you. We haven't had a 12 or a 24 hour here yet, but we are having what's called the Agogi in the World Championships. And that is a 2-day event, and they cover all those mental, physical, spiritual side of you and try and bring the best out, I guess, take you to the point where you question everything. I think that's the whole point. Unfortunately, I can't do that this year. Those are definitely some other events that I would be looking at doing.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I'm signed up to there's a 4-hour hurricane heat coming up in New Zealand as part of the Spartan race next year. I'm signed up to it, so it's good hearing what to expect, and I'm excited and nervous. It sounds scary. Hopefully we can go ahead for a 12-hour in the future as well.
To do with mental fortitude. Physically, if you're a racer, physically, you will not find it a problem. You're used to carrying sandbags. You're used to carrying logs of wood. You're used to picking up stuff. That's not the issue. I think it's the mental fortitude. When people say, right, you're going to do 500 burpees, and we're going to stay here and we're going to do it in unison, that's when your mind goes, can I actually do that? And you find out you actually can. Your body will keep on going. It's whether your mind is in the game. So it is a fun event, and you think 4 hours is going to go quick, and it doesn't. It doesn't. It's a hard slog. I'm going to be honest. It's a hard slog, but you'll enjoy it at the end. You'll come out and you'll just go, that's something different, but one achievement.
All right, Max, shall we wrap up for now? And have you got any other questions you'd like to ask, Max?
No, I think covered a lot, and it's been quite fascinating.
Is there anything else you want to say, Jeremy? Have we not asked you something that you'd like to tell us about?
I've poured out a lot of information, and hopefully got you guys excited about Spartan and possibly coming over here. And no, this has been fantastic. I'm absolutely I feel privileged to be asked to speak.
Thank you very much. We've enjoyed our chat. It's good. And maybe before or after the World Championships, we'll get you back on. You can give us a bit of a rundown on what happened.
And I'd like to make it to New Zealand if quarantine opens up and there's no quarantine. Come May, I would love to come back to New Zealand and race there as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. I shall.
Well, but we almost forgot.
Oh.
Almost forgot the most important question, which is kind of unrelated to OCR. But we've been asking everyone who comes on the podcast at the end if they could have coffee with any person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
This was a really hard question, to be honest. I've been racking my brain because there's so many people that I look up to, or have inspired me. But who would I have coffee with? And currently in my training and my lifestyle at the moment, I'd honestly have to say, and this is it's Hunter McIntyre. And
Okay.
I'm sure you know Hunter McIntyre.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. The guy is an absolute beast. I follow him on Hyrox. I follow him on OCR. I also follow him on his training system. He has a training program. The guy's, although he's a bit taller than me, he's about the same size as me. And his training is just insane. And I'd love to sit down with him. I know he's a very honest guy. He doesn't pull punches. One of my mates here has also interviewed him, and I watched his interview, and the guy he knows his stuff, but he just doesn't pull punches. And if you got it wrong, he'll tell you got it wrong. So I like that honesty,
Yep.
and to sit down with him and to have a chat with him and to hear the honest truth would be fascinating. And who doesn't like a porn stash and a dirty mullet? I mean, come on.
Yes. He is a character in the whole OCR world, and I've heard plenty of interviews with him on different podcasts, and yeah, he certainly would be one to have a chat with. Okay, well, thanks again, Jeremy, and we will have you back again sometime.